The third guideline of this exposition is focused on awarding procedures. We have pointed out that the main aim of European public contract law is to ensure the selection of the best tender among those submitted. This means that the procedure to be designed must ensure the principles of advertising, transparency, and tendering on the broadest possible base, confidentiality and equal treatment. After analyzing the guidelines referred to the Europeanization of public contract law and to the sources of public contract law in Europe, we must take a close look at the procedures designed by these sources of law. Here we find two types of procedures, as we have pointed out before: contract award procedures and review procedures of decisions made by the authorities involved in the selection process. When referring to awarding procedures, we must bear in mind that in this case, the aim of law is to organize government activity so that the contract is awarded to the most economically advantageous tender, that is, the public contract, be performed by the economic operator who offers the best in the market. With this aim, procedures are organized in two separate stages. On one hand, the preparation of the procurement procedures. On the other, the award of contracts, which is focused on the selection of the economic operator. Regarding the preparation of the procedures, the regulation establishes stringent rules for publication of contract notices in order to make them available to all economic operators. After this, the rules on award procedures establish how to select the best tender once they have been submitted. Here, European law allows some possibilities about opening up public procurement to competition. There are open procedures, where any competitor may submit a tender. These are the procedures which afford the greatest protection for competition. And there are restricted procedures, where only economic operators are invited by the contracting authority to be submitted to a tender. There are also negotiated procedures where the contracting authority negotiates with tenderers the tender submitted. And last of all, as an exceptional procedure, there is the possibility of the direct award of public contracts. In terms of competition, direct award of contracts and negotiated procedures pose serious problems, so these procedures will appear mainly in national law. European law is focused on open and restricted procedures. In any case, what's important is the fact that European law is focused on this phase, which includes the preparation of the procurement procedure, the design of the specifications, the selection of the tenderer, and the conclusion of the contract. Thereafter, it is national law that rules the performance of contracts. According to the legal traditions described earlier, in some countries private law rules the performance of public contracts. In others, specific national regulations rule this matter. However, we must keep in mind the fact that there is a growing concern in European law about the importance of certain issues that take place during the performance of contracts. Certain risks for competition in the internal market have been identified in the amendment of contracts already concluded. In certain affairs, the case law of the Court of Justice become aware that the amendment of contracts may involve new awards. Thus, the current reform of directives regulates the amendment of contracts. This implies that European law has extended its scope beyond the conclusion of contracts even to the phase of performance. As we said before, along with procurement procedures, European law regulates review procedures against contract award decisions. These procedures are regulated in the so-called remedies directives, which I mentioned before. There are two guidelines to be considered when referring to these directives. On one hand, they shape the procurement procedures. On the other, they establish a new review procedure system for the award of public contracts. To begin with, certain measures are introduced in procurement procedures to ensure that effective means of redress are available in the European countries in cases where bidders consider that contracts have been awarded unfairly. These measures include three main features. First, the standstill period, a suspension of the procurement process after awarding and before signing. This period gives bidders time to examine the decision and decide whether to initiate a review procedure so that unlawful decisions can be set aside before the conclusion of the contract, and the process can be resumed at an earlier point. Second, the contracting entity must inform the tenderers and candidates concerned of the award of the contract, so that they may know the name of the successful tenderer and, if necessary, initiate a review procedure. Third, in this case, the review procedure results in the automatic suspension of the procurement process. If the selection of the tenderer is challenged by other tenderers or candidates, the conclusion of the contract is suspended until the review body takes its decision. These three guarantees are truly effective, and they do ensure not only the protection of the tenderers concerned during the procurement procedure, but also the selection of the most advantageous tender. Along with these measures introduced in procurement procedures, there are also certain review procedures. In this case, European Union law establishes some common standards to be completed by national law. There are two kinds of review mechanisms. First, the pre-contractual review, which can be brought before the awarding of contracts. Secondly, the post-contractual review, which can be brought against serious illegalities committed by the contracting authority in the stages of contract award. Concerning pre-contractual review procedures, the regulation to be transposed by member states is certainly exhaustive. The guarantees to be considered are the impartiality of the body, regardless of its nature, whether administrative in Germany and Spain or judicial in France and Italy, the short time frames for the decisions following these actions. If the guarantees provided by the pre-contractual review are not effective in a certain procedure, the post-contractual review applies, rendering the annulment of the unlawful decision. The introduction of this post-contractual review is another example of the extension of the European Union law to the phase of contract performance, in the same way as shown when referring to rules for contract amendment. Once again, we are faced with the expansive force of European Union law in all stages of public contracts. In any case, the post-contractual review is a closing clause which allows the cancellation of contracts motivated by infringements of European regulations, even in countries where contract awards cannot be annulled in earlier stages of the procedure. With these words, I conclude my presentation, hoping it has been to your interest. Thank you very much.